As you can see, our stage is a little crowded today because we had the put a piano up here, which is great because we have one of my favorite people in the world of classical music. I've been on the board of the Philharmonic for a few years, and I've done announcing for the Philharmonic on WQXR, and in that time of becoming more and more familiar with not just the repertoire and the ensembles and the conductors and so forth, but the soloists as well, and getting to meet all of them, there was no one who I found more charismatic and more fascinating to me, and his life is fascinating than our guest today. And I don't want to waste a lot of time with our introduction. Would you please join me in welcoming the incomparable Lang Lang?
Thank you, Alec. Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you, Alec.
Now, the thing that you have your book that we read, and much of the notes we have are based on that, in which you describe a really, really interesting and at times difficult time as a child growing up in China, and your dad's influence on your life. And what I wanted to do was actually go in the opposite direction, which is to start now and go backwards. What is your relationship like with your dad now that you are this huge international superstar in this world? What's your relationship with him like now?
I mean, we're very close. We're really much better than when I was 9 years old. Much better. It's not in the same level. Yeah, we're really, and it's getting closer somehow because we are not living together. So in a way, when you have a distance, it makes beauty, right? So that's how exactly happened. Yeah.
But when you were young, it was. I mean, what you're saying, I completely understand, because obviously in his mind, he must have a kind of a mixed feeling, the euphoria of you having made it to the degree you've made it. And at the same time, he's not around you. I know that if I was your dad, I'm obsessed with my kids. And if I was like your dad and I was instrumental and influential in helping you become what you became, then all of a sudden you were like, okay, Dad, I got this, and you're going to move out on your own. I'd be like, wait, no. If you were my son, I'd want to live with you forever.
So, I mean,
what does he do with himself now that you're not living together?
He's actually he's helping me a lot in China back home, and then he's also teaching a lot. He likes to helping the next generation of musicians, and
he himself was a musician.
Yeah, he played the erhu, the Chinese violin. So that was his.
He was in some weird little bands, like circus bands. And then was in the Air Force band. Right?
He was in the Air Force band, but before I was in the circus band.
Right.
Yeah. But the instrument itself is very beautiful. It's like one of the most kind of a charming and principal instrument from Asia, and it's very tasteful. It has a really beautiful taste, and it's also an instrument always makes you cry somehow. Yeah, it's like. Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, my father made me cry with different reason.
You weren't crying because he broke out what is it called again?
Erhu.
Erhu.
Yeah, erhu. Yeah, more like that. Yeah.
I'll get my Chinese pronunciation down
right.
eventually, but maybe by the time we're done. But then you keep moving in what I've learned from the research that my producers Emily Botine and Adam Ty Schultz did for this show, that your native country, is very driven by competitions and international competitions. Yes. They put a tremendous emphasis on that, correct?
Absolutely, especially during my childhood. It seems like one of the best way to make career were winning the competitions, and which is the truth, especially during that time, because otherwise nobody will discover you, in a way. So we have to go out for international competitions and to win prizes. Of course, it would be nice to win first prize, but so being number one is kind of became a motto in my early career. And then, of course, after I landed here, I had this teacher, a great pianist, Gary Graffman, who's also quite different compared to the other academic professors because he is so into a real career rather than a short term being a prize winner. So he discouraged me to do competitions, and I was like, wow, really?
Did he say why?
Yeah, he said that you're too crazy about being number one, but you're not really focused on what you should be, learning the repertoire. And he said, do you want to become a great musician or you want to just win a prize?
Winner.
And I said, is that not the same? I said, what's the difference? I said, if I don't win a prize, how I'm going to become a great musician? He said, oh, okay, that's the wrong understanding you have. And especially his wife, Naomi. Every time I go to library in Curtis, and then I start looking over the competition forms like Von Cliburn, Chopin, Tchaikovsky, and I take it out. And then I'm thinking to fill the form, right? And then I saw Naomi next to me. Hey, what are you doing, bad boy? Shouldn't you just working on your Brahms second piano concerto rather than fill in the form, trying to be a crazy number one somehow? I was like, okay, let me go back to practice.
Yeah, when you're young, you won your first competition when you were 5, correct?
Yeah, I mean that's what I was kind of like.
Shenyang.
Yeah, I was like kind of a professional competition person. I'm very competitive. If I see you, let's do a competition now. And if I see you, let's do it.
No, I'm not going to bother. You win.
Yeah.
In our company, you're the winner. We'll just skip to that. But what fascinates me is the emotion and the feeling behind that kind of work. When you're 5 years old, if you can recall, are you sitting at a piano and it's pressure and it's tense and it's like you have to pass a test because it's a competition, and there's a kind of a tight feeling you have where you want to, or are you enjoying yourself when you're 5 years old?
One thing good about competition is that if it kind of pushes you to play better than you normally does, because you try to play without wrong notes. You try to be 100% concentrate on what you do, but also in the same time, if you are too serious about competition, which you lose your soul in a way that you are afraid to do something wrong. And as you know, in art, sometimes when you really do something unique, you are actually not really on the page. You are actually doing something, but that is a really great moment. So in a way, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. But I kind of enjoyed it because sometimes I lose, sometimes I win. It's encouraging me to do better, and actually I learn more than just playing, because I see the other kids playing, and I'm like, wow, they're good. I need to catch up, So this is a good vibe.
It's funny to see you of all people, and you watch another 5-year-old kid play, and you're like, damn, he's good. I couldn't do that when I was. All right, let's have a competition. You and me right now. You're challenging everyone to a duel at the piano. But my other thought is, and this is a very obvious question for people who are these child prodigies. When you look back now, what was missing in your childhood? What did you wish you had more of?
Video games, more sports, more free time. Yeah. But now I'm at age of 36. I can have more free time if I want. So it's in the end, it's kind of okay.
You postponed it.
Yeah. Postponed it. Yeah. But in a way that I wish that I may have a little bit more fun time. To maybe less pressure, I would say. Yeah.
Did your father, when you became a grown man, did he offer you any perspective about that? Did he sit there and say, I'm sorry that it was so tough and I'm sorry that it paid off in the end?
No.
He never apologized.
No, I think the best action, he was like, oh yeah, let yourself handle your stuff, and I'm not going to handle it anymore. I think that's the way that he
passed the management baton on to you.
Right. So in a way, and it's because of he doesn't like to sit on an airplane all the time because it makes him a little bit dizzy. That's also one of the problems that he gave up. And also he said, your mom should work a little harder, so let her do it. So that's
right. Your mom, who I met when we were at Manhattan School of Music.
Right. And now he's jealous of my mom. He's like, all the important concert you are going, and then you have a nice photo. So because he likes to have some nice photos.
So now your mother's doing a lot of traveling with you, and not your father?
Yeah.
So what's your mother's answer with all the travel? Just one martini is what her program is?
That
does come in handy for some people.
She has this natural, some kind of a, she's just never get tired. She's incredible. I think I get some of my energy from her. She's like always, her eyes are always like this. Yeah, but before she started travel with me, she always sleep really early, like already 10, 11, very healthy, right? But then she now travel with me for a few years already, and now she's like never sleep before 3 or 2 at least, but she looks better than before. So I think it's the music therapy, I think it's she's just everywhere. Like every time I play something, she's like, yeah.
You've had a corrupting influence on your own mother. I find that fascinating. I was at the Philharmonic a while back during this current season, and we went to dinner afterward with Jaap van Zweden and his wife, and with Deborah Borda, and with Yefim Brofman.
Great.
And I asked him something I'll ask you as well. I said to him, is there a piece you play that is exceptionally challenging to you? Is there one that even you, who you guys are at the Mount Olympus of pianists here, and you sit down at the piano and you go to play a piece and you go like, oh man, I hope I have it today. This is one that was particularly tough for you to learn. Now, Brofman's answer to that was, I found it fascinating. He said, when I don't think I actually play very many easy pieces, to be honest with you. I thought that was amazing.
I can imagine his facial expression.
Yes, he said, I don't think I play very many easy pieces. He said, all of them are difficult in their own way. Are there any that are exceptionally provoke you?
He's so right, because every time if you play a new piece, whether it's technically easy or difficult, there's always a new story to tell, and somehow it's not all about play the note anymore. As a growing up pianist, so more about how to bring those music to life again, and into a different interpretation. So therefore, every pieces you have to focus, and in a very different style, of course. Yeah, but I wouldn't say this piece. I just I don't need to care much, and it will come out in a great way. No way. You have to really focus and to concentrate. So that's why, like in this new album, the piano book, it's the same thing. There are many pieces considered to be pretty simple, but once you start to re-look into those pieces, and you're like, wow, those are master pieces. It's not simple. Maybe technically simple, but if you want to make a real, music out of it, you have to be focused and to play everything in your mind to make it work. Yeah.
Well, there, of course, is my first slip up here, which is that you brought up your book before I did.
I'm sorry.
Which is which is a bad hosting on my part. I should have mentioned that you have your new book out, the piano book, and the CD, which I have. And one thing I do, which is a silly preoccupation, is I go to an iTunes or any kind of a download service,
right,
and I look and see the length. So who plays the Mahler 9th, 4th movement the longest and the slowest, the most tortured 4th movement of the Mahler? And you, along with his name I'm going to get in a moment, you do Clair de Lune. You squeeze the hell out of that. You really play the very long,
yes.
luxuriating Clair de Lune. Why is that?
I intend to play slow piece slower. That's kind of and I think after getting a little older, I think it's going to be even longer. No, I'm joking. Don't worry. I mean, the other day there's one critic said, from the Clair de Lune's the way I played, I think Lang Lang plays Goldberg with 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I think it's kind of a right thing to say. I'm now trying to figure out how long I'm going to play that piece, but you know what? I just want to enjoy the moment, and I wanted to make sure that I heard everything from that piece.
I mean, to me, that was a huge part of my education when I started to really immerse myself more in the repertoire and the difference between this ensemble and the battery between Zell and the Cleveland and Schulte and the Chicago and Muti with the in Milan and so forth and on and on and on. Dutoit with the Montreal and people who recorded a lot, and I would see the gaps in the time. I mean, Haitink does a piece and it's this pace, and Mazel does a piece and he adds a whole minute, and Gergiev adds almost 3 minutes. You know what I mean? They all have their own tempo and their own pace. It's just incredible. Now, before we segue, because I want to get this right, to you maybe playing something. We have a piano here, which is just a suggestion only. Don't feel any pressure. It's there in case you feel inclined to, do this
I like this way of, inviting someone to play. In case, there's one friend of mine. This was really funny. So it was somewhere in the world, and it was the birthday of mine, and so he invited me to his house, and he said, I know today's your birthday. Probably you will not play today, but I just want you to know it's also my mother's birthday.
No pressure.
So I played happy birthday for her,
Oddly enough, my mom is in the audience. It's her birthday today.
Yeah, and
no pressure.
Yeah, and
no
there's
pressure.
also I heard with Casals, Pablo Casals, and there's a rich lady in London always inviting him for tea, but he always had something to do. He did not have time, and then so finally he came, and then the lady's like, "Where's your cello?" And Casals said, "You did not invite my cello today."
Billy Joel did our show, and Billy said that everywhere he goes, obviously a considerable number of people have a piano in their home, and he said everywhere he goes, they're like, Billy, do you mind? Just one quick tune? And everywhere he goes, it's like, will he play Christmas carols at the Christmas party? Whatever. Do you find the same thing is true? Are people constantly saying?
But they do in a different way now. They say, when I'm traveling, so do you need a place to practice?
I'll put a piano in
you
my
can
home
come to my home anytime, 24 hours. I don't have neighbors. It's okay. It's myself. I'm like, okay, I got it.
3 o'clock in the morning, you're like,
It's long. I'm downstairs. Let me in.
This is really nice open house invite. Yeah.
Now, before we get to some other subjects, I've got a lot of questions here. Would you regale us with some little?
Yeah, so I will play. Yeah, I will play a one of the piece from the recording.
Okay.
I don't know which one, but I start.
Wait, yeah, it'll come to you.
Thank you. This is the waltz of Emily from the movie Emily. Yeah, it's a really nice movie. Yeah.
Describe for us, how did the piano book come about? Whose idea was this?
I always wanted to do an album like this because when I was a kid, I barely find the professional musician recording pieces like for Elise or Czerny Etudes or Clementi Sonatina or Mozart Sonatina or some of the piece which you consider be the beginner's piece. But those are the pieces I loved the most when I was a kid, and then those are my best friend. I mean, sometimes it's not best friend. Sometimes after a lot of practice, become my worst friend. Sometimes I want to kill them. Yeah, but in the end of the day, those are the bread and butter made pianist to grow. So therefore, I wanted to to record something which can be appreciated by every person who loves piano. So that's why we called the album the piano album. Yeah.
And this is for Deutsche.
Yeah, for Deutsche Grammophon.
Yeah, and it's already in release because I have it on my phone. I downloaded it on my phone. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was worth it, believe me.
Thanks. I hope it's bringing some nice feelings. And don't always count the minute, please. Yeah. Later it's like 1 second, 5 seconds. Yeah.
Now when you're leaving very shortly in the next few days to go on a tour, and you're going to have you're going to Rome, and then you're going on to Korea,
Japan, Australia,
South Pacific, so forth.
Yeah.
Now, when you go on these trips, the first thing that comes to mind is that you grew up in communist China, and of course Americans have their own unreliable images of China and what goes on in China. I don't think they're quite sure, but for me, what I'm curious about is how did the Cultural Revolution in China impact your parents? Wasn't there some impact on your mom?
I think the Cultural Revolution, I mean, of course, this is from their generation. I wasn't there.
Right.
But it certainly gave them incredible kind of, openness to the next generation. They want their kid, to be a citizen of the world. And they, in a way that because they kind of missed 10 years of time to not connect it to the world. And so in a way that's why my generation of Chinese kids, not kids anymore, we are very, trying to, learn piano and to get connected to the world. Of course, being Chinese, but also a world citizen. So kind of our generation is kind of like our mission is bridging the culture together. Yeah.
When you travel around the world, you perform at your level, at this supreme level. I talked with you about this backstage, which is that you can be honored and you can be welcome anywhere in the world you could possibly go. I mean, there's just nothing in my mind. I've seen the treatment and the worship, the idolatry of the biggest figures in the classical repertoire, whether they be conductors or soloists and so forth, and a principal chair and some instrument. And so therefore you could live in Tokyo or Berlin or Sydney or Rome, Paris, London, Moscow, anywhere around the world. But this is, other than your native home of China, this is your home now in New York?
Yeah.
You call New York home now?
Yeah, I moved to New York in 2007 after 10 years in Philadelphia since 97. And
to go to Curtis?
Yeah, I was study there. And then I was waiting to earn more money to afford the apartment here. So
How's
that's
that
why,
going?
Yeah, I mean, it worked since 2007, so that's why I moved, yeah. And when I came to America in 96, I was just turned, just turned 14, and I thought New York is such an incredible city. It's a city with the whole world behind, so I always wanted to come here to be part of this.
And why not
great
other
culture.
cities?
I mean,
Because the cultural scene here is obviously very real. New York is a cultural capital like other great cities, but maybe not as much as other cities. Like there was no thought in your
you mean
mind
some
to live
European
to live
cities?
in Paris.
I mean, I actually do have a new home in Paris.
I fully expected you to say that.
So I mean,
You sold a few records, I
so
see.
so it would be like Beijing, New York, and Paris, like my three. But New
It
York
sounds like
somehow.
the perfect triangle: New York,
Yeah.
Beijing, Paris. But so when you travel the world, are there halls that you play in, or there are people that you play, ensembles that you play with that you really get excited about? Like, what are among your favorite spaces to perform in? I know that the acoustics are very much of an issue because being on the board of the Philharmonic, and they're going to be dynamiting the David Geffen Hall very shortly in the next year or two to redo all of Geffen Hall. What's a space that when you perform, you just love the sound of that space?
I mean, there are many beautiful halls in the world, and of course you have Carnegie Hall here. You have Boston Symphony Hall. It's a really amazing sound. And you have the Musikverein concert house in Vienna. And one of the very beautiful look, like this beautiful look, is the Royal Albert Hall in London. Maybe the sound is not great, but it looks great, I mean, sometimes that count too, for DVD recording, live streaming. It's like,
a nice
whoa, nice place, yeah. And but it's really interesting because for pianists, we normally play on the side, right? So we never really look into audience somehow. I mean, if you want, you do like this, right?
No, I was going to say,
sometimes,
you know I've got you. You know I've got you.
Yeah.
That story I told your mother at Manhattan School of Music. You finish and I'll do my story.
Okay.
Go.
And then, but in the Royal Albert Hall, it's a round, right? So everywhere is audience. So first time I felt really nervous when I start playing Mozart. So delicate, and then I see someone's waving at me. I was like, oh, this is only downside of playing the roundhouse. And I'm thinking about cellist every day. Playing like, wow, that's tough. That's tough.
I'm with you at Manhattan School of Music. I told your mother this story. I said, we're in Central Park, and you're playing Rhapsody in Blue.
Right.
And you're there with the Philharmonic with Alan. And it's the concert in the park. And that's obviously we're the reverse. You'd be facing the other way. Right. And you're playing the piano. And you get to this, the most tender and the most beautiful, the most gorgeous moment in that soft piano part of Rhapsody in Blue. And you get to the end of the keyboard, and you took this nanosecond to look at the audience. Of course, I'm projecting here. And you get to the end of the piano, and you look at the audience, and you're like, you really love me. You're really crazy about me when I do this. When I do this to this piano, you go crazy, don't you? I know you do. And you went ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. You were like, it's me here with you. And then, and I said that to your mother, and your mother goes, exactly, that's him. That's what he does. The little shout out to the audience. I love that. What are other things, I mean, do you get to the point, I mean, this is true with people, let's say, we were just talking about Barbra Streisand the other day because we did an episode with her, how she goes on to directing. What are other things creatively that you've thought about doing? You mastered, obviously, the piano at the highest level. Are there other things you've thought? Did you ever want to conduct? Did you ever want to?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, there are many great things I can do, of course. I mean, if I have a better knowledge, like composing or conducting. But of course, for me, I think there's a more important thing to do, which is to inspire the next generation to take music class.
Talk about your foundation.
Yeah, and thank you. I really wanted to let everyone to learn an instrument, because I still remember my first day in Philadelphia in high school. And I went into the class, and they said, so introduce yourself. And I said, yeah, my English was really bad at that time. So basically, broken, very broken at that time. And I said, I'm playing piano. I come here to study classical music. And everybody look at me, it's like they're seeing an alien, First they see this Chinese, and then it's like, what? You play what? I said, Mozart, do you know Mozart? I think I heard about that guy. That dude, yeah, he's dead for many years, right? I'm like, oh, wow. I was like, wow, this is something. You know?
I've been in a bubble.
Yeah. And I'm like, you guys have a music class? Not really. Why should we learn music? I mean, I was like, wow. So you see, I mean, from that day, and then, by the way, I also record, I may play a little bit, the chopstick. You know, I did not know that piece in China. I did not know chopstick. I know chopstick, you know, but so they asked
me. If I made that joke, my career would be over right now.
So the only thing, so one day I invite them to the backstage of Philadelphia Orchestra. There's a piano, and the reason because they were in the rehearsal for 2 minutes and they cannot stand anymore, so they all came out because they just couldn't listen to symphony, and they said, Lang, there's a piano there. Can you play chopstick? And I was I don't really know, and then but they showed me and I started. But from that moment on, we became really good friends. It's also, this culture clash is kind of, we went through that point. And then I realized, one day I should help those, my friend and classmate to have a bit of, music inspirations in the school. So therefore, 10 years ago, we founded the Lang Lang International Music Foundation in New York. And now we have almost 60 schools, and I also want to thank you. But I want to have this opportunity to thank Alec, because from the first time when we played concert, Alec was the host already, and then in every fundraising time, he's always there, and he's also donate.
It's hard to say no to you.
Thank you. No, we really appreciate your help.
And so the foundation's been in existence for how long now?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
And 60 schools in the U.S. or around the world as well?
U.S. Yeah.
How would you say, I mean, to the extent that this is possible, because I'm always quick to undervalue or emphasize the American experience, if you will, but to a fault maybe. But how much would you say you come here and you are a prodigy, obviously, and as a very young child, as all the greats tend to be, you're at the piano and knocking them dead at the piano since you're 5 years old or 3 years old or whatever. How much would you say the United States and your experience of living in the United States helped to crystallize some of your talent and some of your ability?
Sure. The people, in a way that I was very lucky. I had this best teacher in the world, Gary Grafman, and also
Curtis.
Yeah, at Curtis, he basically became a lifetime teacher, a mentor to me, and so because this is quite important, there are many schools, many different teachers. You need to find someone who's having a great knowledge, but also fits your style. And in a way, Gary is absolutely the right one, because he taught me so much about different culture. Because learning piano, this is not just playing the note. You have to learn the culture. Like you have to learn the history. You need to learn their culture roots, folk music, and somehow you are learning the culture of the world, and you really need to dig into it. And then I think in the U.S. it's a really you have so many different neighborhood. If you want to find more European neighborhood like Germantown, you're under the French Quarter, so you always find people from different culture, and they can share, their culture with you. And I still remember the first few years, it was very difficult for me to understand the culture a little bit. And then Gary found a wonderful teacher who taught me Shakespeare. Then after reading a few of the books, then I starting to understand the Western classical music, the relationship between, the music to the art theme, to the novels, you have to have the surroundings. And then, of course, not only U.S. Is important, you also need to go to Europe, because this is some of the very they're home of some of the greatest composers, like going to Moscow or St. Petersburg, going to Vienna, going to Berlin, Hamburg, Paris, and so or Madrid, to get into the European culture.
Now, when you're performing now, because I find this, I had someone very early on explain to me when I was more proximate to the performers and the maestros and so forth of the Philharmonic, and I was around them more, to have someone explain to me the role of the conductor and the history of where music was a little less complex in the 18th century or late 17th century, and then it becomes more and more complex. You might getting up into the realms of Stravinsky and Mahler and people like that. You have to have someone there who's going to keep time, because it's very, very almost borderline chaotic up there. What does a conductor have to offer you these days at your level?
Conductors are, I would say, they are they are the guidance of musicians, because when I was a teenager, I had many great live experience with conductors like Sawallisch, Laurent Mazel, and they're like my grandfather. They're like a totally different generation and from a totally different time, and so they told me how to understand Beethoven, how to understand Brahms, how to understand, in a way that is hard to explain in the schools. But this is like face to face. They show you the feeling. Like they basically, even though sometimes they don't sing really well, but they can really show what they want, and in a way that. Those are kind of life experiences, and this is something that I'm so treasuring for those experiences, because now these days some of those masters already passed away, and I still have a beautiful memories of my first time meeting Sawallisch, or Mazel, and this is just tremendous experience for me.
I want you to tell them the story about Eschenbach.
Yes. The Eschenbach I met in 1999, and then the first time I saw this guy, I thought he was the actor from The King and I.
You mean Yul Brynner?
Yeah, right, yeah, and
we'll try to make sure Eschenbach doesn't hear you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he probably know. Yeah, or from X-Men also. Yeah,
he might have Patrick Stewart.
Right. Anyway, so he was really encouraging. He's like, play this, and so I play Little Haydn, play Brahms, play Rachmaninoff, play Chopin. So
where were you?
I was in Chicago, in Ravinia. This is a wonderful music festival there, and
this is when you replaced someone.
Yeah, but that time I did not know. I just play audition. So he and then suddenly he asked me, hey, so if I ask you to play tomorrow, do you have a repertoire to do? I'm like, what's that? Because we know in classical music we book ahead like 2 years. We never book tomorrow. This is not in our style. And so like, okay, Tchaikovsky piano concerto. He said, okay, good to remember. And then I went back to Philadelphia. The day after, next morning, I got a call from management.
Of Ravinia.
And the manager, at my agency. So they called me. Said, you got to wake up. I have a great news for you. Andre Watts got sick. I'm like, oh, but that's not great news. I mean, like somebody is getting sick. Yeah, but it's good for you. I said, what happened? You got to replace him to play Tchaikovsky #1 tomorrow night, but rehearsal is today. You cannot miss it. Okay, so so I just got back. Yeah, and my father was like, wow, this is like you are a bench player and somebody.
Yeah, it's like Bernstein.
Yeah.
It's like Bernstein's historic concert at Carnegie Hall when he filled in for Walter. Who was it he filled in for? Who was sick?
Yeah, Walter.
And that's when he.
Bruno Walter. So we were like, wow, this happens really incredible. And then so I went back, and then this is the first time I play with Chicago Symphony. This sound comes out. I was like, wow, what a brass section.
With Eschenbach.
Yeah, and it was incredible. Yeah.
And the next day, I'm assuming you were on the phone. You were like, "Listen, Andre, take your time. You want to really rest and fully recover. You don't want to push things. I'm here. It's all good."
Yeah, and then maybe do you have a few more concerts?
Where are you supposed to be on Thursday? Andre?
right. Oh, let's go Boston. Yeah,
Let
Tanglewood.
me
Yeah,
call
go.
up. James Levine. But there is a bit of that, isn't there? There is a bit of history is made by someone has to fall down in the race for you to win the race. Not that you win the race because Andre Watts had a great career, but name. This is always difficult because I don't want to leave anybody out. But name, because I will tell you people who I am so from the audience perspective, and you can talk about the difference. I have another question for you, and then of course.
Oh
No, it's a suggestion only. You don't feel pressure. Okay. Don't. You are our guest. You're our guest. We would never, push you toward the piano. However,
I see that sign. Yeah.
However, the
Conductor. See.
Right. And bum 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 bum. But there's people that I've seen on the podium, and I'm just so captivated by their style. I mean, I'm so captivated. There are some who are very histrionic and very very powerful, and they're very muscular on the podium.
Everyone has a very
and then there are people who barely move. Right before Mazur died, Kurt Mazur performed at the Philharmonic, and he could barely moved his hand. He just moved his hand very modestly. Haitink is much older, of course. I thought Dutoit was so elegant. I fell madly in love with Tugan Sokiev. I watched him conduct the Rachmaninoff second on I have an app on my phone where I can watch all these Berlin Philharmonic concerts streamed on video. You watch them on your phone. And I watched Tugan Sokiev. I'm completely in love with him. I'm madly in love with him. And but very elegant on the podium. Name, if you can, a couple of conductors who you really love working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Gustavo Dudamel, he's my great buddy. I love him. We just played day before yesterday in LA. And then
where'd you play?
Beethoven No. 2. Yeah. And also I love the new conductor of Berlin Philharmonic, Kirill Purchenko, which is going to be starting with Berlin Phil this season. And of course I love Zubin Mehta. He showed me all the tricks what Horowitz did with him, the Rachmaninoff Third Concerto, and also when I play Chopin No. 1, he said, "This song is not good enough." I said, so what do you think? He said, "Yeah, I played with Arthur Rubinstein. He did not play like this." I'm like, "Oh, show me, maestro, show me." And he said, "I don't know how to do that, but he did like this."
So is it interesting? That's amazing. So maybe that with that comment about Arthur Rubinstein with who was it? You said the conductor was?
Zubin Mehta
was a while ago. But do you continue to learn? Are you still learning?
Absolutely.
You are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
You are.
Yeah. And once upon a time, I always like to imitate the conductors. Or like before conducting. There's a conductor I don't want to name. Always pray to the God first, and then. Very interesting. You have to know. There's one conductor who's not a conductor, who's a, string player, and I was playing a Beethoven No. 1 with him. I just couldn't find the beat. It's like, I'm like, is that here or is that there or is that here? Yeah. He said, "I don't know."
He was honest.
Yeah, very honest. Yeah.
He knew he couldn't bullshit you, so he just said, "I don't know." But the different ones, like Gergiev with that hand of his.
Yeah.
Gergiev was conducting, and they get down very low, and one piece of Gergiev goes. And I literally am up in the box years ago with Zarin Mehta and his wife Carmen.
Yes.
And we're in the box when Zarin was running the Philharmonic, and I can't tell you, not countless times, but a few times, I would lean over to him and I go, "What's he doing with his hand? What does that mean?" When he goes with his vibrating. Gergiev is really a very original that way. Now, when you say that you're still learning, what makes a great teacher? When you study with great teachers, because I want to get to in a moment. I got two more questions for you before we maybe take a little break. It's up to you. But what makes a great teacher?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Sometimes you go to a master class and you learn a lot of things in that class, and then afterward it helps you a little bit, for a few more weeks. But if someone's really good, real master, you will hear a master class, and that class will carry at least another 10 years. And every time you think about, what he or she told you on that class, it's not just about how to make music, but it's a really the way how are you going to think about music and how you connect with your personality, to the composers, and how do you bridging your imaginations world into the music world, and how are you going to develop your next 10 years. So they basically make you think much more than who you are. And this is I always felt there are few musicians can really do that, and it really brings you to think much deeper and to think about in a very different concept. And I still remember working with Maestro Nicholas Hanencourt on Mozart. And of course I played many times Mozart concertos, but that lesson I played, he showed me something that I never seen Mozart can be described or interpreted in that way. And that changed the whole time. You basically think, oh my God, what I did was wrong, and I'm gonna relearn everything. So some musicians have that power to really restart your thinking of everything.
Are you going to tell us what he said about Mozart? Because people love classical, or is that a secret? Is that an industry secret?
Nothing. I mean, I think I play a little bit of, the.
Would you like to show us what he taught you?
Because
now would be the perfect time for that.
It's a little bit hard to describe because it's a quite.
You don't need to describe it. You can just do it.
I play 2 variations from the Twinkle Twinkle variation. Okay.
I only have a couple more. Just a couple more. Was there a moment in your life, I mean, I know I asked these sappy questions, but was there a moment in your life when you thought, I really am pretty good at this? Like, when did you realize you were becoming the person that you became? At what age were you?
It happened few times. Yeah, because like, it happens, and then you think you're not good enough. It's kind of like that. So when I was 9, I thought I really don't have talent, and I thought I'm gonna give up. And then somehow
Why?
I mean, it's,
What was going on in your life that happened when you were
I had a professor who did not like me, and then she fired me, and I thought I'm so bad. I got fired even. Can you imagine this? This really, and she told me that you will never become a pianist. So, yeah. So
now you call her before every concert.
No, I got.
That's where I am now.
No, I got so scared because every time when I'm making audition in the conservatory, she's sitting first row because she's the professor, So I had so many nightmares because of, her her encouragement. But anyway, but then the first time I thought I'm pretty good is that when I won the international competition at age of 12 in Germany, and I thought, wow, I actually can play some good sound, yeah. And then I had a horrible time at school again. Like I did not do well, and I'm like, okay, I'm not good enough. And then when I came to America, in the beginning, I was so confident. The first months, I'm like, wow, I'm pretty good. And then there are many great students at Curtis. They play so well, and I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough. And then I have no concerts, for like 3 years almost, because it just nobody is kind of have the confidence to take a 15-year-old boy to play Beethoven concertos or Tchaikovsky. It's kind of like too young, So I still remember my early days audition, from Philadelphia, taking the Greyhound bus. It was like $12, something like, and then came to Times Square and then running into auditions, and then afterward, conductors like, yeah. By the way, actually, I met some of those conductors. They forgot already. So great, better they don't remember. So there was a audition for Milwaukee Symphony. I mean, their basketball team is doing really well. The Bucks. So the symphony, it's good orchestra. And then the conductor look at me. From some European country, I forgot which country, and you played pretty good, but how old are you? And I'm 15. Oh, maybe let's wait another 10 years. But I still remember, those things, and so it did not go so well in the beginning, and so I got a lot of rejections, yeah, but
It's different now.
I mean, and then I thought maybe I'm not good enough, and then when I did that replacement, I thought I'm good again. So it's it's just
it's
somehow
a constant ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Now, there's a story that I read about you going to Ettlingen, and you
that's
go to
the German one, like in 12 when I was 12. Yeah,
right, and you go to a competition, correct?
Yeah. First international competition for me. Yeah.
Right, and when you go there, you went to a church.
Yeah.
And I read where you prayed to Jesus when you were in this church. And I'm just wondering, and I want to phrase this question the right way, which is, do you have, without enumerating them or discussing them if you don't want to, specific religious beliefs, or, like many people that I've met in the classical repertoire, is music itself your religion now?
I think certainly music is our religion, but I do believe there's something really, some incredible power beyond us. That's for sure, because that's...
You're the proof of that, actually.
I mean, when I play, sometimes, you're getting inspired from somewhere. And this is not just about, our wonderful friendship, but there's someone is helping you. That's for sure. And also from the different part of my life, there's a lot of time I thought I'm not going to make it, but somehow I made it.
The strength came
Yeah,
to you.
so there must be something beyond our...
Are there other cultural things that you avail yourself of? I'll never forget Pacino was somebody I interviewed once. And I said, what is your relationship to music in terms of it manipulating you for your work? And he said to me, sometimes there's no music in my life for a long period of time. I don't listen to any music, and then all of a sudden it comes into my life again. Do you listen to any classical music?
For me, when I'm not performing, I like to listen to jazz. Because somehow, the jazz the jazz musicians are really incredible. They can just give anything and they make it into a beautiful work. Especially people that I admire like Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea. Those my great friend, and also learn so much from them. And then the other aspect is to listen to new music. Like just fresh made, whether it's on top radio or like EDM. Just hear
Movies, TV,
yeah,
any of that?
movie
You like
stuff
movies?
is also great. And also I think listen to Mahler symphony or Brahms symphonies are always very inspiring. You always find something new, and somehow when I was a kid, I did not really reflect those things into my life. You kind of listen to it, it's beautiful. But now somehow, when I'm, especially, normally when you play with orchestra, the second half is the orchestra, right? So I always sit in, and then when I listen to Mahler or Brahms, or it just somehow it's reflecting your life, even though, you may not living in that period of time. But somehow there are a lot of point when the composers are trying to make the statement, into the changes of the harmonies. Somehow it's like it's so related to us. This is like you sort of thinking, oh, this is one point of my my career. What happened is like the turning of the harmonies, and it's a really, I think the more symphonies you kind of get more life experience ahead.
I did a film once. I told the story before, maybe on this podcast, where I did this film once, and I said to them, they have a concept called protected dates. So they'll say to you, what are the protected dates you want where you cannot shoot? And we'll carve you out of the schedule when you are not expected to come to work. And I said, well, I want to be released from work on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of this 1 week. I have to be released from work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. All 4 of those days to leave Brooklyn, where we're shooting, to come into the city. And finally the time comes, and they put that in my contract, and the first day comes on a Monday, and the producer, who was a bit overbearing, he says to me, he said, "What is this thing that we're springing you for? You're leaving today at 5, right? And we're getting you out of here at 5. Where is it you're going? You're going somewhere at 5 o'clock today and tomorrow and Thursday." He goes, "What is it?" I said, "Well, the Staatskapelle is coming to do the Mahler cycle at Carnegie Hall."
Wow.
With Barenboim and it was Barenboim and Boulez. And I said, "I'm going to go see the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 9th. I said, I looked at him like, "What else would I be doing?" And he looked at me like, "You're kidding me." He said, "We're driving ourselves crazy and making this movie schedule so you can go and see this piece." And I guess my last question for you is, what is it? I mean, I'm the other day sitting there, and they do the Rock 2, which is very romantic, very basic, very everybody knows this piece, and we're all sitting there, and the tears start rolling down everybody's face. I raced to get to Carnegie for the Staatskapelle Mahler cycle, and I get in my seat. I mean, like Obama was in town, and Columbus Circle was closed, and I can't get to Carnegie Hall, and I finally take my seat like the moment the maestro's going to walk on stage. They're going to start. I mean, I sit down, boom. I was so embarrassed. I come in, and I sit down, and they begin the Mahler, and the tears are just rolling out. What is it about this music that it touches people that way? What is your feeling about that?
Yeah, because in classical music, especially in the symphonic pieces, they have so many different layers, and those layers are, representing our emotion, our lifestyle, our memories, and our kind of different aspect of culture. And people like Mahler, he's the reason I think we love his music so much is that because he has such a mix of culture in his music, and it's somehow, every one of us is piece of that, and also that's what classical music is for. It has it's a very long pieces, very long symphonies, and it's very different when if you see a film at 5 minutes and finishes. If it's a TV soap, 20 minutes, or it's a movie for 2 hours, it gets you into a different stage of your heart, of your mind as well. And I think symphonies or like opera, they can really get into very deep layers of your heart and of your senses. And another thing is that once you are in the concert hall listening to those incredible work, is that everything else get blocked. Everything else. So that's why your emotion becomes so pure, so genuine. You become who you are. And so that's why, we get tears in our eyes because we're so focused and we just let music takes us to when we start, our life, the first day of memory. And I think that's it.
I was going to ask this question, but I'll just say this now, and that is that I was going to say you grew up your whole childhood in China, and then you've lived here and abroad for years. And I was going to ask you, what have you learned that the Chinese people and the American people have in common? And I was going to, I guess what I'm realizing is everywhere you go, what people have in common is this language of music and their love of music.
Yeah, I mean, the music is so powerful. Like, for example, there are many cultures, I think, like, for example, there are a lot of great orchestra coming to visit to China. I mean, and most of those Chinese kids probably never heard of those countries before in their life. But when they start playing their music, we all felt that we know each other. And this is the power. This is really the power. Yeah.
Please join me in thanking our very special guest, Long.
Thank you.